So then I realized that it's not even me necessarily provoking the action. It's just that's how he is, because I stopped engaging like that. So and it got even more serious because I would be punched in the face, like as if I was a man. Like these beatings were like it was a man-to-man situation, and I was not fighting back. I would retreat. I would crawl up in a ball, and I would have my ribs kicked in. I would have my face punched in, just our objects picked up, and I was hit with them. So yeah, just, and it would be over things that.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. So today I have with me Michelle, who is not going to show her face for privacy purposes, reasons, and perhaps safety reasons as well. But she is going to share her story with us. So it's a 20-year-long story of abuse. We're also going to focus on why a lot of women don't leave abusive relationships. And so Michelle's going to share her story with us today. So thank you for being back. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to leave your comments as well. And don't forget to share. The whole goal is to really empower women out there who might be in similar situations. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce you, Michelle. Just take it away. You could tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're trying to protect your identity. Okay. And then the first question I want to get into is, how did it first start for you? Like, how did the abuse first start? Because I realize a lot of women are like shocked. I can't believe he just said this or did this, and then we'll just kind of, let you tell your story and I'll jump in from time to time. So take it away.
Okay. All right. So actually, like you were saying, it's a 20-year long story. So I'll try and sum it up as best as I can. Basically, I met this person when I was 16 years old. He was 18 years old. We lived in the same neighborhood. So ever since I met him, we were basically together all the time. He had a particular situation because he wasn't from Canada. He wasn't a Canadian citizen. So he had some struggles within his family structure. Eventually, we ended up having a child early. Within like the first year that I met him, we had a son. So with that, there was struggles with how are we going to parent the child. And then he had issues within his household. So we ended up deciding to move out and get a place of our own. So we got our own place at a very young age. We were young parents. And so that started. When that started now, I moved in with him. And when you move in with somebody, you kind of, especially that early, you don't really know them to a T. We would go to church and stuff together and, try and do the right type of things. But then all of a sudden I would find out that he was still talking to other women and all these other things started to pop up. So we had like a verbal altercation, I would say, in regards to other women. And then that kind of led to a physical situation where I think it was more so a fight on both ends, to be fair. And then I ended up taking the car keys away from him, and he couldn't leave until we finished the discussion. So then he ended up calling the police on me. Oh. And when the police came, because there had been a struggle, they took him.
Yeah.
So when they took him now, he was gone, I think, overnight, and he got bail the next day. And that was the beginning of the rest of horror for the rest of the 20 years, because that one night in prison, in jail, got him meeting other people. So the other people influenced a whole level of crime and a whole bunch of other elements into his life at that time. So that's basically where it had started. And I think that altercation that we had, that he actually hit me over the head with something that I believe it was a gun replica. Okay. I don't know exactly. I don't recall. I very vaguely recall seeing the weapon, but I did recently find their police report from that incident. That's what reminded me of how it actually started, because I actually blacked that out all this time. I did not even recall that incident, especially to that degree, until I saw the paperwork the other day about it. So apparently,
when that first happened, that first time, did you think, just based on that one incident, that that was going to be something that would eventually turn into an abusive relationship, or did you kind of sum it up as this is a one-time thing?
It's kind of complicated because in the beginning, like I left a abusive relationship and entered into this relationship. So abuse was something that was normal for me in a sense. And then also with my upbringing, anytime we did something wrong, the punishment was by physical, punishment.
Yeah.
So all through my life, basically, I've known that men do hit women. Like I was punished physically by my father whenever I did something bad. I was hit in my first relationship, and now this was my second serious relationship, and I was being beaten again. So basically, I kind of chalked it up to not necessarily it being a regular occurrence, but I felt like it was a two-way street. Like we were both fighting, and he is just bigger and better than me. So he won. Is what I chalked it up to at the time. So I'm just like, okay, well, if I'm going to lash out at him, he has the right. When I was younger growing up, I felt like if anyone puts their hands on another person, they have the right to defend themselves, man or woman. That was my thinking at the time. So it's like, if I'm lashing out and I even though I'm not doing anything nowhere near what he can do, if push him or I try and like make him stay or something or hold me, then I deserved it because I was doing something to him.
So you had convinced yourself after a while that you had deserved some of what was going on?
Yeah, because if I was restricting his movement and he hit me to get away, then that would be why I got hit.
When did that change? When did you make that calculation that this is not necessarily tit for tat, but I'm probably in an abusive relationship?
You know, that mindset didn't change until late, like maybe a year or two ago. Yeah, I realized
18 years
like
after.
Yeah.
And what sparked that change?
I was realizing, well, first of all, I stopped fighting back a while ago. Like it was years that I had stopped fighting back. So now I wasn't doing anything physically to deserve the physical abuse back. And so I said, well, if I'm not even physically doing anything to you and I'm getting this result, like, what is this for? You know what I mean? So then I realized that it's not even me necessarily provoking the action. It's just that's how he is, because I stopped engaging like that. So and then it got even more serious because I would be punched in the face, like as if I was a man. Like these beatings were like it was a man-to-man situation, and I was not fighting back. I would retreat. I would crawl up in a ball, and I would have my ribs kicked in. I would have my face punched in, just our objects picked up, and I was hit with them. So yeah, and it would be over things that didn't make sense.
Yeah. So how would you explain that around family or friends or work or whatever the case is when you interacted with people? How would you explain
I didn't get much interaction with people.
Okay.
Anytime it happened, I would seclude myself, and that was kind of easy to do. In the past 7 years, I was actually taken out. He ended up being deported from Canada, and I ended up going with him where he was deported to.
Yeah.
just to try and keep the family together. So there's a long in between that story, because he was away for 10 years and then I had gone with him. So there was no abuse for 10 years that he was away. And everything had changed. Like, he had become a whole new person. He was spiritual. He was more intelligent, more understanding, more caring, more loving, more supportive. Everything was perfect while he was away. So I had no reason to think that when I moved to the other country, that things would go back more so to how it was before. I had thought, okay, he's finally grown up. He's finally realized, himself and become a man and, understands himself. He was working and so on when he was away. So I'm like, okay, so he's earning money now. It was a complete turnaround, 100% different. He had convinced me, he had convinced the parole board, because he actually had an 18-year sentence and he got out at his first attempt, which is, even they said, is very rare. It almost never happens. So they said that he basically had a very convincing argument that he was a completely different person from who he had been.
So when did the change happen again? When did he go back to being, I guess, that person again? Like, how did that happen?
Within 2 weeks of being in the other country, within 2 weeks of his release.
Wow.
Within 2 weeks of his release, I had he had received a phone call, and then I was just like, who's that? Casually, and not even really thinking anything, because at that point he had earned my 100% trust. So it was just casual, like, because it seemed kind of, I guess the call maybe seemed kind of weird or something. So I'm just like, oh, who's that? And then and then he's like, oh, it's just my friend. But it's like, I've been with you for so long. I know every single one of your friends. And so it's like, why would you say my friend instead of just say the person's name? So that to me was a trigger from the past. And I'm just like, okay, no, you're lying, because, it's obviously somebody else, because if it was a friend, I would know the name. Anyways, so that started something. At that time, we were living on family property, which we were supposed to be living there because we didn't have anything else. And we went there with no money, no nothing. So, it started another incident again, where we had that same going back to childhood stuff where we were both at it. And it's triggered the whole violence thing again. But then I realized that I had made a huge mistake that day. I realized that day, this person had not changed. This person was the exact same person that was before. And I had made the biggest mistake of my life by leaving everything I had behind, selling everything I had, leaving my job, uprooting my children. At that point, we had 2 children together. I uprooted the kids to a third world country. I uprooted myself to a third world country with no money, just for the sake of love and for the sake of trusting in one person and believing in one person. So that day when that happened, I lost my mind, legit. I lost my mind. I took every pill I could get my hands on. I tried to go out to sea and just drown myself. I tried everything to just die that day, and it didn't work. And then his family got upset with me and said that I'm going to end up getting them locked up, because if I actually am successful in killing myself, they will go to jail. So they said I have to go to the hospital and get my stomach pumped, because they are not going to jail for me. And they said that this situation that I'm in happens to everyone. I am not exempt. I'm not exempt from being cheated on or being lied to. This happens to all women, so I should not react like. So I'm like, no, it's different, because all women do not wait on a man for 10 years in prison and then move to another country, which is also a third world country, with their children, with just luggage. And I legit, I even had, at that point, I even had whatever I had of my household contents, whatever I could bring with me, I brought it with, like, I had it in a ship on the way to the country. So it hadn't even arrived yet. So like my whole life is in a ship, and I have luggages with 2 kids. So I'm just like, no, this situation here does not happen to everybody.
No,
it does not.
No.
And no girl, a lot of girls wait for their guy in prison, but no girls are actually 100% faithful and do every single thing that that person needed to be done. I had done it. So it was a completely different situation for me, because I'm in it all the way, all down to even being branded. I had been branded because he basically said I needed to prove my love by putting his name on my body.
Oh, wow.
Which I did that.
Yeah. So your mental health at this time, you're in a foreign country, the abuse has started again, and his family is obviously supporting him and not looking at things from your angle. And you're thinking to yourself, what? Like, I just made the biggest mistake in my life.
And I was thinking that basically I at that point, I'm like, there's no way in hell I can call my family or return back to my country and tell them this shit has happened.
Yeah.
Because it would be an abundance of I told you so's. It would just be like the biggest shame and embarrassment of my life. So I was just like, I just need to die, because I don't want to live like with this person anymore. And I don't want to live with this person anymore. And I don't want to go back to my family telling them that this has happened now.
It's not only a disservice to someone's self to do something like that, but and of course I understand how you felt in the moment as well, but the person is here, and people like that, I realize the selfishness, the level of selfishness that they have is just way beyond. And I think you're so much better than that person. But you also sound like that type of person who's willing to forgive and give someone else a second shot or a second chance or whatever the case is. And then it came back to bite you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because even when I was saying, like, when we were younger, I was a different type of person and I reacted different ways, but I had grown and changed in that time as well. So I said to myself, well, if I am capable of change, people are capable of change. So I really believe that if you wanted to change, you can change, and it is possible, and people have the right to start over and not have the stigma of their past.
That's true.
Follow them their whole entire lives, right? So I highly believe in the possibility. Well, I highly believed in the possibility of change. Now that I kind of have a different feeling on that, but that's what I believed at that time. And then the thing is too, with the suicide situation, is the amount of times that I've tried to commit suicide in my life, it's never been successful. And I think the main reason why it's never been successful is, as much as I want to die, is as much as I have fear in God as well. And I have such a fear in God as well, that if I am successful, I have a belief that if I commit suicide, then I will be going to hell. So I in my deep self, I really don't want to die because of that fear of God. But
that's what you're saying.
Otherwise, if it wasn't for that fear of God, I would probably be dead already.
So how do you, well, first, how long did you stay in this situation the second time? So you traveled to this country, in 2 weeks, the abuse starts again. How long did it last the second time before you got out?
7 years. 7 years. Yeah.
7 years.
So we were together for 20. We had a 10-year break in between, in between. And so now it's been, I think we left 2022. We got together 2000, and it ended 2020. Yeah.
So the question, though, a lot of people and a lot of women and a lot of people would wonder, why so long the second time, the 7 years? Why do women stay? Why did you stay? And why do you think a lot of women stay?
So the 7 years lasted because number one, it didn't get to an extreme level until we got to the other country in 2014. It didn't get to an extreme level until 2017, 2018, where there was extreme abuse.
So what is extreme, just to be clear? Extreme
was like I refer to it as I was his inmate.
Oh.
I had realized that I had become the inmate. And when an inmate doesn't comply, the bigger one, the more powerful one will dominate you and control you. And if you do not comply with any orders, you will be beaten until you comply. So that's how I kind of refer to myself as an inmate. And also my son, my eldest son, he was also one of the inmates as well. I refer to that as well. We both would get beaten.
Wow.
So there was a point of time where we were all there. And then eventually my parents had come for a visit, and I allowed my son to go back with them because I knew this was not a situation for him to be in. So I let him go, even though I didn't want to be separated from him. My son had told me, like, Mom, just come with me. And I said, I just can't go at this time. And I said,
why couldn't you go at that time? Because a lot of people are going to want to know, at that time when your parents came, and why couldn't you go? Like, what were you thinking? What was going through your mind?
Okay, what I was thinking was that I had already invested so much. And at that time we had acquired certain things. Like I had a place that I was living. I had bought things there, and also like I had shipped all of my contents to that country. So it's like, if I leave, I'm legitimately, all of my years that I actually worked hard for would be down the drain, because I'm going home to be homeless, to have no car, to have nothing whatsoever, just my clothes. So basically I'm like, I cannot leave this person with my whole life's work when he doesn't deserve it. And I'm left with nothing, because he had never worked. So everything that had been acquired was acquired by my labor alone as a single mother. So it's like, to leave him with a car, beds, washing machine, like everything that I had put in, and I'm going home to nothing, was very hard for me to deal with. I couldn't comprehend being put in that situation. And then even I would look at houses online in Canada, and I would be like, okay, if I was to even go back, how much does it cost to get a place now? Or what kind of places are available? And at that time, I'm living in that country, in a nice house with a lot of space, and it was ridiculously cheap compared to what I'm going to be going home to. And I would be going home to live in somebody's closet of a basement apartment with nothing, to start over again. And I had no car, no nothing. So it was like living that reality of, okay, you're coming back home to zero, and you're going to have to start from absolutely ground zero. And you're already a person who was living a life of poverty before you left that country. Now you're going to be below poverty going back to that country, and you're living comfortably now. So how could you do that just because this person? And then on top of it, living with the shame of all your family and friends saying, why are you back? Why are you here?
So how did you overcome all of that and eventually go back? And did you still have to end up giving up everything and go back? Like, how did...
Okay. So my suggestion, seeing as how this is a channel for empowering women and trying to help women get out, or do what we need to do. The major thing for me was, like, if I was like, to answer your question, I did lose my things. But the thing of it is this, if I had listened to myself earlier, and I had just left and accepted it earlier, I would have lost less.
Okay.
Each year that I stayed, I acquired more things, even though I was holding back in in trying to not acquire too many things because I did not feel safe, and I knew that the day that I might have to leave would actually come. So I didn't have as much things as I could have had, but I still did end up acquiring more things just based on necessity. So yes, I ended up when I actually got out, he took me to court for everything. He took me to court. He had not worked in the whole 7 years that I had been there with him. He took me to court for my business. I had become self-employed by my own. So he took me to court for my business. He wanted half of that. He took me to court for my car, which I had shipped into the country with other people. Like, I wasn't the sole owner. My father had contributed and a friend of his had contributed. So we had all contributed because he was supposed to use the car for tourism, to help him to work as well. So to get us around and to say, okay, you are not working. You say that you could do this. So we are going to buy a car. And if we buy this car, you can use it to work. So in turn, he ended up saying that he is the owner of the car, because the car ended up being in his name, because I wasn't there to clear the car when I had shipped it. I was still in Canada when it had arrived there. So the car actually had his name on the title. So he's using that leverage to say that he is the owner of the car, even though he has no proof of income. He had not worked. So I'm still actually in court for some of these things, especially the car. I'm still in court for the car. So he's been driving the car for over 1.5 years now. And me and his son have been taking a taxi, up to 8 taxis a day to get to school and work each day for that 1.5 years. So yeah, I ended up, what things I did get out of the household stuff, I did have to give in and give him some things from the house. And then the car is still up for debate. And then, so there's a lot of other small parts too, but it's a long story. So I'll just skip that. But yeah, to answer your story, it's a yes and no. I lost some, I did get to keep some. So whatever I did get to keep, I sold it, and I'm using that now to help me rebuild, which wasn't much anyway. So, but yeah, I'm trying to do that. Meanwhile, I still have to try and figure out how to go to court still for that car. And a lot of people say to me, just leave him with the car, forget
I think
about
a lot of people
it.
would say that, yeah.
But it's like, to me, as much as I try and convince myself to leave him with the car, it's the principle of the matter, because I lived what he put me through.
Yeah.
I always think to myself, when I die, if someone was to examine my bones, they will know for a fact that this was an abused woman, because I'm sure I have fractures in my skull. Like, my bones will tell my story. So I'm like, to live with all of that, and then to have been basically supporting a grown man for 7 years plus, actually, because even he was in jail for 10. So obviously he wasn't giving me anything for that time. I have 2 children by him, and I had to take care of these children on my own, including paying for school. Where we're from, school is free. And I have to go to another third world country and pay for them to go to school, pay for them to have a uniform, and pay for a whole bunch of healthcare, everything for everybody. And still travel back and forth to Canada. And I was expected to pack barrels and send goods back. I was expected to work. And then I even had a job in that country. And he told me that my job wasn't good enough.
Wow.
And that I needed to earn more money because it wasn't enough. I was also told that I need to provide sexual favors and sexual acts that he would want, and that I was not enough, and that he needed other people as well because I am not enough. And
so
that
he wanted to bring other people into relationship as well?
And I had to take care of them as well, basically, because obviously if you're trying to date another woman, you have to buy them food or buy them a drink or what have you, or even after what is it called, the Plan B pills I've had to buy for women, all kinds of stuff.
So he forced you to take care of some of the other women that he was sleeping with?
Yep, including one time a girl was living with us for like about 4 months. He broke me down to that point where it's even led to that, where another female was living in my house and eating and washing clothes and everything in my house.
The
She
money
was
that
in
you're
another
earning.
with money that I'm earning, and he was not earning anything. And he said that we are women and he is a man, so he should not have to do anything in the house now. We should have that covered.
Wow.
And he wasn't working. And both of us were working. She was working too, but her job didn't pay as much as I did. And she was in a situation too. So he was acting like he was saving her and helping her out. And then I kind of had accepted it at that point because I wanted a witness at this point to the shit that I was going through.
Yeah.
So me and her became closer. And because when me and her became closer as friends, he didn't like her anymore because he realized that the two of us could probably overthrow him.
Yeah.
Wow. So it became like that. Like me, I kind of accepted them for the fact that I had a witness to what I was going through. So, and I had like somebody to confide in, someone to run to when shit hits the fan with him. But then we had to provide him with favors almost daily at the same time.
Yeah, let me ask you. I mean, I have so many questions going on in my head.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
I'm thinking when you got to this part, I'm thinking this could be a movie. I'm thinking this is a movie.
It is a movie. It is a legitimately a movie. And that's why I needed to talk to you. Because yes, I need to get my story out. I need people to understand what can happen out there and how manipulation is so powerful. This is a man who had spent years in prison, and he told me he read the book on how to break a slave. Oh. And when he told me he read that book, he put it in the light where the prison system is trying to break you and the system is trying to break you. But by him reading that book, I feel like he actually was able to figure out how to break me. How I was the slave, or whoever he needs to manipulate is that slave. Yes. Like whoever he needs to control, he's able to do that. He's able to do it to a great degree. He does it with his friends because his friends have been sending him money for 7 years now too, which doesn't make sense on how you can support somebody who's not doing anything at all for that long, even though you're friends. I think you have to provide tough love. And I would even tell his friends, stop sending him money because he needs to go and work. You sending him every time I freak out or there's a real problem, he would call for help and say, oh, can you send $100 or can you send $200 just to keep me calm and compliant, because he realized like, yeah, she cannot do anymore and we're stuck. So I have to ask somebody else for help. So he would ask his friends for help just to hush me for a minute and keep me calm. And so I would continue to comply. You know what I mean? So there would be many times when I would threaten to leave, and I would threaten, if you don't get a job, I'm going to just leave because I can't take it anymore. And either I would get beaten or he would act as if he's going to do something to change this, to help out. But then it would never happen.
So let's back up just a little bit because we didn't finish talking about why do women stay in these situations? Why do you think women stay and maybe stay for so long? Because there are going to be people who would say, I would never stay in this situation for this. I would never. Why do you think women stay?
Women stay in that situation because not only are they hiding it from themselves, what's happening, or other people, what's happening, you're hiding it from yourself, what's happening. So I cannot go outside and admit to anybody, even to this day, I have not, this is the most I've ever told anyone. I said out loud to anyone. So to this day, I have not said everything that happened to anyone. I have not said it to myself even. There's a lot of things when I go through my paperwork and I was packing up, there's a lot of things that I realized I had buried. So you don't even realize that it's happened until you're out. Like you don't realize what has actually transpired. And because you're trying to conceal it so badly from the rest of the world, because it's so shameful and so embarrassing and so And especially for me, I had moved from my country. So it's like, not even like I could say we just split up. If I split up with him, I'm going home. So if I go home, there's going to be a million people asking me questions. So it's like, I have to face so many people and I have to start over again. So that was a huge thing for me, was that burden of losing everything and starting again, where I felt like I didn't deserve that because this wasn't my fault. I had upheld my end of the bargain. And I felt like, like for me, when I make a commitment and I choose to do something, I'm basically wrong and strong to the end. Like if I make a commitment, I uphold my commitment. If I make a promise to somebody and say, I am going to do this for you, or I'm going to be here at a certain time at a certain date, I have, like, my personality type, I hold my word. And it's very important to me that when you make a promise to somebody, you keep that promise, because you never know what it means to that person. Because I know when people promise me things, like, I don't really like to ask for anything, but if someone offers me something, I kind of, if they don't uphold that promise, you've probably just screwed me over, because I was really relying on that. So it's like, I really hold that type of stuff, like value, honesty, and a value, like being trustworthy and being reliable, is extremely important for me. So when I'm not upholding my end of the obligation, it kind of seems like I failed. So if I married this person and we get divorced, I have failed. It's not he has failed, in my opinion. I felt like I had failed. I'd failed myself. I'd failed my kids. No one else in my family is divorced. Everybody has happy family, So it's like everyone has high education, happy family all the way around. And so me now, I don't have that high education. I was a teen mom, and now I've got married, and I'm going to get divorced. So like the cycle continues. I'm just failing all the way through. So it was like the one thing I said, like, I need to hold on to this, because I cannot fail. I have to show these people. Just like when I was a teen mom, people said, oh, you're going to lose your kid because you're too young to have a child. I made sure I never asked them for a dime to help me take care of any of my kids. And I never, So I made sure to just, like, make sure that anything negative that they had said, that, oh, I'm going to lose my child because I was a teen mom, or, oh, this is not going to work out. I made sure that it did work and that I could prove them wrong. So basically this was me proving them wrong, staying in it and not allowing them. And just whenever they say, oh, how are things? I would just seem like everything's perfect.
Okay.
I would hold him to the highest light. They would know nothing wrong, nothing negative about him. Whatever he was not doing, I would make it so that he's doing, like, I would make it appears that he's trying his best to do everything in his power to be better and to do this or to do that, and that we're just fine, everything is perfect, and oh yeah, we're here, we're there, we're living life, we're at the beach right now.
That's kind of like the people who pose on Instagram. They only show you the best parts of their life and all that sort of stuff, and living that stuff.
I would even have a girlfriend of mine. I have this girlfriend of mine, she's single, and she would always say, well, at least you're married, and at least this and at least that. And I would always say to her, listen, it doesn't matter about any of that. I said, you can see a picture of somebody and they look so happy, and you do not know what is going on behind closed doors at all. None of that matters. None of that matters. She was actually better off than me being single and not even realizing and understanding that she was better off than me. So like,
let me ask you though, as we're closing up, because I think we may have to have a part 2, because it's just running out of time. There are going to be a lot of questions, I think, when I post this video, so don't be surprised if I reach out for a part 2. But before we run out of time, what did you learn? Like, if you could just wrap that up for me in a minute, what did you learn from all of this?
The biggest lesson that I learned 2 things. Number 1, when you see a red flag, run. Do not make an excuse for somebody. Do not think that something is just maybe because of their situation, this and this and this. No, if you see it, run. A person is something that I always hear, when a person shows you who they are, believe them. That is so true. When they show you who they are, believe them and run. 100%. Yeah. And then the second thing is, to a certain degree, trust nobody. When you're in a relationship, whether you're a male or a female, I highly believe in writing things down and having written contracts in relationships from day one. From day one, when you buy something as a man or a male or a female, I think you should write it down. Who purchased this? Where did the money come from? All these receipts. It should be documented, because at the end of the day, there are females out there where a man is working tirelessly to support a female, and the female would turn around, cheat, and walk away with everything. And it's not fair. And the same thing will happen to a woman as well, where a woman has put in everything, and the person, in my opinion, when you go into a relationship, and it doesn't work out, take what you put in. If you didn't put it in, don't take it out. If you both put in, then you both should split it, fine. But if you did not put in, do not take it out. And you shouldn't have the right. By law, I feel like no matter what the situation is, if that person claims to be a homemaker or whatever, if you didn't put in and you don't have legit proof of being that homemaker, like, you should not get.
Yeah.
Everybody, and the biggest thing that saved me too was being independent. I was actually financially independent of my own. I did not need him financially for anything. And if I did, I would be screwed, because I would have still probably been in it. The one thing that I did have in my pocket was I was independent financially. Good. And I did not need anyone for that.
Yeah.
So that's very important. So for me, women, all of us women, we need to make sure that we are financially independent. And relying on a man, we need to be contributors, not somebody who's just needing somebody to take care of them. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. As I said, don't be surprised. We may have to have a part 2 to this. I think this is a movie. We may have to have a part 2 to this.
Yeah.
So yeah, we definitely. So I'll let you know. I'll send you an email when I post. So that you could definitely see it. And yeah, I think we're probably gonna have to do a follow-up. Let's put it out there and see how it goes. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me and to share your story. You know, every time I think that I've heard like the story, then you hear this story and you're like, oh wow. Not that anyone is bigger than the other, but it's you get so much more.
It's just different. It's just different. And it just lets you see how different people live different types of traumas, and that there's so many different types of traumas out there that you would never even realize. So it's really I felt like I really needed to explain this story, because I think I've never heard of this before, what happened to me.
No,
and that's kind of how it happened, because I've never heard of it. So you know. So I think it's important to hear about it so that you recognize it when it happens to you.
Great. So thank you. Have a great day. Thank you for talking to me. I know we're going to talk again.
Okay.
Yes, we're going to talk again. Have a great day. And
you too.
Yeah, let's put it out there and see what happens.
All right.
All right.
Take care, everyone.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.